The United States has condemned the latest deadly attack in Nigeria's Middle Belt, expressing deep concern over the killing of dozens of people in Plateau State, including children, who were reportedly attacked while asleep in their homes. The latest reaction from Washington has placed renewed international attention on the security situation in Plateau State and the wider Middle Belt, where rural communities have suffered repeated attacks, killings, and displacements. The United States Senior Advisor for Arab and African Affairs, Massacre, described the latest violence as deeply disturbing and called on the Nigerian government to do more to protect vulnerable communities. Bulos said he was particularly disturbed by reports that dozens of people, including children, were killed while they were sleeping.
This is certainly unfortunate, of course. Any incident, any loss of life is absolutely unfortunate. Those who know the terrain well know that terrorism has no color and no religion and no tribe. People of all religions and all tribes are dying as a result of terrorist acts, but it's very unfortunate. We even know that Boko Haram and ISIS are killing more Muslims than Christians. So people are suffering from all sorts of backgrounds. This is not specifically targeted about one group or the other. However, any loss of life is too many. One is too many, and we should work together in partnership to put an end to this. With regards to, there are other incidents that happen to be in the Middle Belt, for example, where farmers are located. Most of these farmers happen to be Christian, and some herdsmen are going through and they have these incidents. But we definitely, it's not something that we can say is specifically targeted about a specific group. However, we must work together to put an end to this. The Nigerian government and the President Tinubu's administration have recently taken additional measures and put more resources in those areas. And we've seen some improvements in recent weeks. We appreciate those measures, and we definitely look forward to more of those. And we look forward to ending these sorts of acts.
He expressed condolences to the families of those killed and urged the Nigerian government to ensure that those responsible are brought to justice. The U.S. official also made a direct appeal concerning Christian communities, saying the Nigerian government must uphold its commitment to protect them. His statements ended with a strong warning that violence against Christians must stop. The comments followed the deadly attack on the Bimpa community in Mangu local government area of Plateau State. According to the report, gunmen invaded the community between midnight and the early hours of Tuesday, killing at least 23 residents. The attack has generated widespread concern because of the reported manner in which the victims were targeted. Survivors have described a terrifying assault in which armed attackers allegedly moved through the community, entering homes and killing residents. Some survivors said women, children, and elderly people were among those killed. The latest violence has once again raised questions about the ability of security agencies to protect rural communities in Plateau State, particularly those located far from major urban centers. Washington's response came after the U.S. Bureau of African Affairs also condemned the attack. The Bureau described the incident as another murderous attack in Nigeria's Middle Belt and said the United States was horrified by reports that people were killed while sleeping in their homes. The U.S. government also expressed concern over people who remained missing after the attack and offered condolences to the families of those killed. Washington urged Nigeria to protect Christian communities and ensure that perpetrators of violence are held accountable. The timing of the statement is also significant. The U.S. Bureau of African Affairs noted that the attack occurred shortly after a meeting of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedoms Country of Particular Concern Working Group. The reference is important because Nigeria's record on religious freedom and the protection of religious communities has been under increasing scrutiny in Washington. The United States has previously raised concerns over violence affecting Christian communities in parts of Nigeria. However, the Nigerian government has repeatedly rejected descriptions of the country's insecurity as solely a religious conflict. Nigerian authorities have argued that the security crisis involves multiple factors including terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, communal conflicts, competition over land and resources, and organized criminal activity. The latest U.S. comments nevertheless show that Washington remains particularly concerned about attacks affecting Christian communities in the Middle Belt. Another American lawmaker, Congressman Riley Moore, also reacted strongly to the Plateau killings.
I think one of the things that's, and I would say disheartening in this, hearing some of the media reporting and frankly, some of my colleagues on the other side of the dais here, is this misdirection of what is happening. There is a persecution of Christians in Nigeria. The witnesses have made that clear. We heard the bishop speak. I don't know how many times we have to hear it or how many reports of martyred Christians, my brothers and sisters in Christ in Nigeria, how many times we have to hear that happen to take it seriously. And one of the things that concerns me is that it feels like at times it's echoing an indifference around this, and somehow we're going to develop our way out of it through developmental programs, and this indifference sounds like echoes of Rwanda to me.
Moore argued that the continuing violence against Christians was evidence that Nigerians should remain under scrutiny rather than being removed from the U.S. State Department's country of particular concern designation. His position adds another layer to the growing debate over Nigeria's security situation and the way the United States assesses religious freedom and prosecution in the country. The issue is particularly sensitive because Nigeria is home to both a large Christian population and a large Muslim population. While many communities across the country have suffered violence regardless of religious identity, Christian organizations and leaders have repeatedly called for stronger protection of Christian communities in areas affected by terrorism, banditry, and communal violence. At the same time, Muslim communities have also suffered heavily from terrorism, kidnapping, and armed attacks. The challenge facing Nigerian authorities is therefore not limited to one region or one religious group. But the latest Plateau attack has once again placed the safety of Christian communities at the center of international attention. The violence in Plateau is also part of a wider pattern of attacks reported across the Middle Belt and other parts of northern Nigeria. Amnesty International recently condemned a series of deadly attacks in Sokoto and Plateau states, saying more than 50 people had been killed within 1 week. According to the organization, at least 32 residents were killed when armed attackers invaded communities in Tangaza local government area of Sokoto. More than 20 people were also reportedly killed in Plateau. The organization said the killings demonstrated what it described as the failure of Nigerian authorities to adequately protect communities from armed groups. The repeated attacks have created growing fear among residents of vulnerable rural communities. Families are worried about sleeping in their homes. Farmers face security risk while working on their land. And communities are increasingly demanding stronger security deployments and faster responses when attacks occur. The Plateau attack has also renewed calls for intelligence-driven security operations. Community leaders have urged authorities to identify potential threats before armed groups reach vulnerable settlements. There are also calls for improved early warning system, better coordination among security agencies, and stronger protection for communities located in areas vulnerable to attacks. For Washington, however, the immediate message is clear. The United States wants the Nigerian government to protect civilians, particularly communities it believes are facing violence because of their Christian identity, and to ensure that those responsible are prosecuted. The Nigerian government now faces renewed pressure to demonstrate that it can prevent further attacks and bring those responsible for the Plateau killings to justice. For the families affected by the Bimpa attack, the international statements offer recognition of their suffering, but what they need most is security, justice, and protection. As investigations continue, attention will remain focused on whether the Nigerian authorities can identify the attackers, establish their motives, and ensure that their perpetrators face justice. The latest condemnation from Washington also makes clear that the violence in Nigeria's Middle Belt is no longer viewed solely as an internal security issue. It is increasingly becoming an international concern, particularly as the United States continues to monitor religious freedom, civilian protection, and the security of vulnerable communities across Nigeria. And with more attacks being reported, the pressure on the Nigerian government to turn promises of protection into concrete action is only growing. For more insightful reports, stay with us on First Next News. I'm Chidera Isom. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next reports.